Welcome back, guys. This is Art and Culture Monday. Of course, with me, Karen Blessing. And I'm having a fantastic time because these are among my most interesting conversations. I have two gentlemen with me in studio, and we're going to talk matters, storytelling, and climate. How amazing is that? So they are already here. Karibuni sana, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Asante sana, we're doing fantastic.
Yes, yeah. I think before we get to the names, I'll start with the gent in blue and the gent in pink. You guys are just doing it for me. I want you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and then we will dive right into the conversation.
Okay, my name is Kigunda. I am the communication lead for Climate Story Lab Africa. So we are super excited to be here to have this conversation in such a bright Monday and also such a bright engaging show.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking all matters about storytelling and how it fuses in with climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes.
My name is Francis Karugu. I'm a Global Justice Fellow at Yale University.
Yes.
I'm also the Monitoring and Evaluation Consultant for Climate Justice Africa.
Yeah.
And I'm excited as well to have this conversation about the Climate Story Lab and how the interconnectivity of sectors and professionals and all players can come together and talk about climate change.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So guys, we have Ken and Francis in studio. You know, one thing that was very interesting when I was going through your bio, I went through what you guys actually do, and I'm like, it's an entire sentence. He's the managing and whatever and whatever. And I was very excited because these are gentlemen who are, you know, like in the limelight, in the forefront of storytelling that is impactful, storytelling that has action plans that will actually change something. Before I jump in front of myself, let us ask, what is Climate Lab? Guys, what is climate?
So amazing. In you know, when people hear about climate change, they jump into jargons and a lot of, you know, complex issues. But for us as Climate Story Lab Africa, what we're trying to do is to bring this conversation for the first time in Africa, here in Kenya, because it has been happening elsewhere. What brought about this is that we realized that most people, conversations are held in very high levels.
Yes.
And when you hear of climate change, you hear of COP25, COP23, COP and COP and COP. So very high level engagement. But we thought about how can we then bring this conversation to the person who is affected on a daily basis.
Yes.
I mean, you and I and Francis here experience climate change on our daily, day-to-day activities and in our lives as we live it on a daily basis.
Yes.
So how can you then be able to see, I mean, to contribute into the entire conversation and be able to be a change maker wherever you are? And then we thought that, you know, storytelling change, or rather shift cultures.
Yeah.
And when culture now shift again, we see some impact happening around these issues that we're speaking about.
Yes.
And that's why we brought all, we thought to bring all stakeholders together, starting with climate story, with creatives. These are storytellers, people like you, musicians, cartoonists, artists, you know, everyone doing something in the entertainment industry. We thought about the community activists. These are people like Kisilu Mwelo in Ukambani, Motomo in Kitui, doing something in his community to see that these effects of climate change, they are speaking about them. They are doing something also engaging in terms of mitigating and adding to the voice, to the global voice. We are also bringing now high stakeholders, high-level stakeholders. These are people sitting now in big boardrooms and discussing matters pertaining policy work.
Yes.
And then how can all these people sit together and have this conversation, and all of us then be able to be contributing to the larger goal of climate change ensuring that the effects that we're experiencing, then we can be able to mitigate together.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I was going through that when I was preparing for this interview. You know, I went to the internet to look for matters climate change, and all I was seeing is governments, policies, people, like individuals were contributing very little to climate change. But I feel this mitigation, that starting from the grassroots, of course, to those high-level board members, because we need them to discuss climate change. We need them in order to create change for climate change, for the climate. So I'm very interested that individuals can actually contribute. So I want to get to you, Francis. What actually attracted you? Like, what made Climate Lab look like an opportunity that you can actually join and work with?
Thank you, Karen. And like Ken rightfully puts it, you know, the question on climate and climate change is an issue that affects everybody.
Yes.
Frontline communities, and everybody is a member of the frontline community.
Yes.
But, you know, the bits and pieces happening in high-level boardrooms, governments, policy briefs, but they issue about Climate Story Lab is to bring these bits and pieces and to join the dots so that the world can approach the issue of climate in unison, and we can have unity of purpose. So what attracted me is, I come from a community where we bear the blunt of climate change every day. But if you ask, the local people on the ground about climate change, they do not think, or they have not been made aware that climate change speaks to their daily lives. And that for me that's what attracted me, in the sense that I have an opportunity to ensure that all the things that we are doing at high level, platforms, we can break them down in a way that speaks to an individual at the local level.
Exactly. So I would like you to talk to a layman, someone who is just watching and wondering, global warming, how does global warming affect me right now? Like, talk to a layman and tell them why it is important for them to contribute, for them to have a say in matters climate change. I think we start with Ken.
Yes, definitely. If you look at our daily lives, and for example, I'm a mamboga, a farmer, an artist who is doing something there. For example, a few months ago, we've been experiencing floods in the city. And how do we come about this? You can look even at the changes of the pattern of raining nowadays. Way back, farmers would know by April there'll be long rains, by December, by this particular time there'll be short rains, but nowadays it's very hard to predict on that particular eventuality of how weather is changing. And so we are experiencing it on a daily basis, but we know we are experiencing it, but how do we then communicate about it it's where the problem is. For example, if you look at the when such happens, when it comes to the rain situation, and it happens, there is short rains, or there is no enough rains, then the crops again fail. And when they fail again, what happens? There's food issues to food security. There's food shortage in the market. And that's why you could find a few months ago, nyanya tulikuwa tunanunua at 30 shillings. So that's how we are experiencing it on a daily basis. Food price has escalated. And if you look at African settings, most of us really have been brought up, and most especially those in Mashinani, have been brought up using the crop cash that is coming out, or the money that is coming out from farming. What does that then translate to? There will be no people going to schools, or people or education at that level will be disrupted because you're out of school to look for school fees. And if you look at that aspect, again, Kenya economy, one of the largest contributors to the economy is agriculture. And when we have not enough rains, or the seasons are interrupted, then we again find that there will be little that is coming from that sector, and then the GDP of the country will definitely be affected. And most of the sectors, public service that are supposed to be funded by the government, again will be constrained, and people have to go back to the pocket. And so we find that on a daily basis, climate change is affecting us. We are feeling it, and somehow we are finding ways to get in terms with it, or to sustain our livelihood without knowing that we're contributing to the larger conversation about climate change.
I think we can start out from primary school. We kept saying agriculture is the backbone, of Kenya, of Africa in general. So guys at home, if you're wondering how this is affecting you, that is exactly how that is affecting you. I want to throw this question to Francis and wonder why Climate Lab Africa chose storytellers, chose activists, chose musicians. Like, what is it that you felt was very key, that this message had to be transferred through this means?
Karen, if you look at, when people are happy, they're happy around, art pieces, music, all of us who are on the balance of youth and not being youth around there, we look forward to weekends. We look forward to social events. If we ask everybody in this room what transpired since Friday, they'll tell you something. There was a song somewhere. There was a video somewhere. There was a movie somewhere. So art sort of brings all players together. If you go to Europe, if you go to America, if you come to Africa, I think art is what brings us together. When we have had issues to do with electro-violence, when we have had issues to do with our social fabric, what has brought us together in the past has been art. And therefore we felt that what is the confluence between art and culture.
Yes.
But now we are talking about, in the past we've talked about climate change in very high level platforms.
Exactly.
But how do we bring this closer to the people? And we felt the most, the avenue that does that best
Yes.
would be art. Because when we talk about climate change through a song, through spoken word, through a poem, it may speak to different constituencies at their level. And we felt that, if we bring, art as a facilitator, then we feel that this conversation will accelerate this conversation and it will hit the right chords.
Exactly, which is why we are here right here on Art and Culture Monday. Like, you guys couldn't be more home than this. This is Art and Culture Monday, and I believe the audiences that you have right here would have been very hard to capture if you were not using such a platform, because like you have said, high level, these are conversations that are had at high levels that we as youths, we who are wondering, we are between youth and adulthood, but I feel this is the right platform for us to have that conversation. Now I want us to, when was Climate Lab Africa formed?
Well, the conversation began in Europe and the US, in the global north, where Doc Society is an organization based in the UK and NGO based in the UK that supports filmmakers who are doing, or rather creatives who are doing impact work. Together with the Exposure Lab. So they came together and so the best way they can have people engage is to encourage people in the creative sector to come up with pieces that will definitely speak to the people more, I mean, in a more easier way or in a more relatable way. And so we thought there was a film in Kenya. We have a very fantastic farmer called Kisilu Mwilu, who produced Thank You for the Rain, a film shot in Mutomo, Kitui. And what happened is that for many seasons that were there, he used to document the change in weather. When there is drought, he would document it using his smartphone. When there are rains, he would document. When there are floods, he would document. When there are famine, he would document. And just trying to see the experiences he's having as a farmer due to climate change. And then he happened to meet with this Norwegian student who was coming to Kenya to do some research work. And that's when they came up with a film called Thank You for the Rain. And this film just typically tells the experiences that farmers are having at the grassroots and the experiences that they're having with the climate change. And it became a buzz when it was produced, and it went all the way. Kisulu has been into platforms like the COP23, if I'm right, speaking to the UN and just sharing his story. And so with that, there was the power of storytelling, because a farmer from way village Uko Mashinani could have a platform at the UN and speaking about climate change and speaking about how it has adversely affected their activities, then it spoke to the power of storytelling. And that's when now we, through the impact that Francis will speak about, we were able to be now granted a chance also to host Climate Story Lab Africa as part of that film. So that's why we are here trying to tell people the little actions that you're doing at the grassroots, at the background, or the little things you're doing now can really contribute to a larger conversation, can bring change. That film, Thank You for the Rain, has made it possible for that community in Mutomo to have an earth dam dug for them. And now the perennial issues they had about water and the scarcity that was there has at least no longer an issue for them, because whenever it rains, they can hold some water for some time, and their hearts can be able to take water from there. They are able to plant now using that water for irrigation, and they're contributing even to environment by planting trees. They have come up with activities. They no longer waste time and resources to go to fetch water and many hours, but now they're able to do other activities that are developing their communities. And that's the power of storytelling, and that's why Africa Climate Story Lab was born. And now we are about to experience it this week. I want to jump to Francis on the impact that Climate Lab has had. But even before I do that, we have just had a story as we were actually just right before the interview. And we were having child abuse cases in Baringo because kids are going to fetch water so far away that, you know, parents cannot monitor that whole long distance. And I think if we solve climate in Baringo, then we have even solved such issues like of child abuse. Like, in consequence of us solving issues about the climate, we solve other humanitarian issues that are very important. Francis, what are other impacts that Climate Change Lab has had?
And you're right, Karen. Yes. That's a story that breaks our hearts when we hear. And it's not just in Baringo. It's I mean, it's spread across the country and other places of Africa. So I think speaking to the impact of our climate story lab and the work we are doing around climate. Is that and now when we bring in this dimension of art, is that traditionally art and culture have been an integral part of our society.
Yes.
And we feel that we can communicate these things in languages that people can appreciate and identify with. So in terms of impact and the work we have been doing is that we have now been engaging communities. And my colleague Ken has mentioned about the work we've been doing in Kitui in Mutomo, where in less than 3 years we've been able to educate the local community. We call them frontline communities because when it comes to a crop failure as a result of delayed rains or changes in climate patterns, it's the crops that fail. Or in the case of Baringo, it's the young girls who fail to go to school, and then they are met with all these hazards that we are talking about.
Exactly.
So in terms of impact, we want to demonstrate to communities that as policymakers are sitting in boardrooms, as parliaments are sitting in parliaments and enacting laws, and policymakers are making policies in high offices, they can also have a part to play at their level. And as my colleague was saying, we have been able to demonstrate that at the community level, people can have a voice and be able to communicate what policy interventions they want, their governments to do, or their elected representatives, MPs, MCAs, they want to enact in parliament or in county assemblies as far as climate change is concerned, because they have the information, they know, the direct connection between their livelihoods and climate change, and that is the impact we want to, to have, not just here in Kenya or in Kitui, because the circumstances of a farmer in Kitui are the same circumstances you find in Baringo, you find in Lira in northern Uganda, or in a place like Dodoma in Tanzania, or Maiduguri in Nigeria. And these are the conversations we want to have and have a multiplier effect across Africa, because climate change is an emergency, and it's an emergency not just for people in high-level offices, but also at the community level.
Exactly, because as it goes to the people in high level, it's also affecting farmers on the ground, farmers who do not have water to do so. I want us to take a look at one of the features that our Climate Lab has actually done, to give people a feel of what you guys are doing. So can we take a look at that, Mr. Producer? Is it ready? Thank you.
Africa's vulnerability to climate change is driven by a range of factors that range from weak adaptive capacity, high dependence on ecosystem goods for livelihoods, and less developed agricultural production systems.
With their cultural practices, they cut down a lot of trees, and they also migrate a lot. So there was a lot of cutting down of trees, and the land was left bare.
Factors that members of the Maasai community in Laisamis know too well, as women here have to trek miles to get firewood from the scattered trees in the savannah.
And if you know the distance, women travel to get firewood, just a backload of firewood. You cannot imagine. It's 12 hours. If a woman decides to go for firewood from morning to evening, that is the only work she will do. You see?
Members of this community are traditionally nomadic pastoralists. They, however, settle down as a result of watering areas being constructed, a start in the evolution of their livelihoods, but also the onset of pressure on forage.
Missionaries develop permanent water sources around here. Then majority of the pastoralists settle down. Then degradation of, cutting down of trees started. And everything was completely finished.
Through training from non-governmental organizations, they are countering the situation in a commendable fashion, embracing a blend of the old and new.
Kwa kila kikundi, hapa tuna kikundi ya kina mama, yani women groups. Tumeanza kuanzisha kwa kila manyata demonstration site. Na mahali yote ambao tutapata shooting ya hii acacia, tunajaribu kuprotect.
Farmer managed natural regeneration. is the initiative that is the weapon of choice being employed.
And FMNR, all it is the systematic selection and management of some of those shoots coming up. We're going to thin, so we'll reduce the competition, reduce the number of shoots, so that the best ones, the strongest ones, the tallest ones have a very good chance to grow quickly.
Sasa tukaona changes kwa compound, ilikuwa mzuri, alafu hiyo nini greens inamea, hiyo grass. Kuna vitu mingi basi tuku anakula. Kwa moto kufuga kuku, sababu iko na faida kwetu kama familia.
Planting trees on this terrain is a tough assignment, but the IMARA program under World Vision has embarked on training on ecological management practices such as mulching, pruning, and wind erosion to irrigation, all in a resolve to transform the bare-turned landscape into the leafy savanna it once was.
Because of climate change and population growth and large-scale land degradation, we don't have time, and we certainly don't have the money, millions of dollars, that it would cost to have large-scale tree planting schemes.
Acacia trees are well-known landmarks on the savanna, supplying forage for cattle and protecting local biodiversity by fixing nitrogen and restoring fertility, and a perfect pick for the job.
Some of the quick benefits, when these trees get pods, pods from these trees are very nutritious for livestock. That is number one. When they flower, it is also feed for the livestock. So it took us over 10 years to work on the mindset of this pastoralist, to see what you are seeing now.
So with sensitization and creation of awareness and the community dialogue, the community has started to embrace FMNR. So this one is just protecting the trees that are coming up to allow the land not to remain bare after.
The first step makes the next easier, and if this community is any proof to go by, there is still hope to reclaim the glory of nature, one shoot at a time.
Lower here, I had very big ones.
Emmanuel Kutosi, KUTV.
It's like the size reduces.
We're back. Welcome back, guys. Yes, such is the work that the media can actually do. What are the relationships between storytelling and the media platform, and such conversations on climate can actually do? We're just actually having a conversation. That's why you caught me off guard. We were having a conversation on how unpredictable climate is nowadays. You can't really tell when it's going to rain, when it's not going to rain. It's too cold, and it wasn't even July before it began to be so cold. But that is the importance of such conversations that we are having. I want us to jump right into the event that is happening this week because of time. So I want to know where is the event planned for? What is included in the event?
Yes, so Climate Story Lab Africa is happening on 8th and 9th of this week.
Yes.
And it will be a virtual event, so most people will be able to interact through, first of all, we'll stream it on YouTube at HBS Nairobi.
Yes.
As well as on Facebook, on the Climate Story Lab Africa Facebook, and Twitter, where it's CSL_Africa.
Yes.
So people, we have curated panels of people that will be discussing.
Yeah.
These will be in a physical room like this, but we're broadcasting it to people now to be able to watch it from wherever they are.
Yeah.
So this event brings together stakeholders, storytellers, and community activists in very well curated panels that I think Francis is one of the people who will be moderating those panels and be able to speak on. But it's an event that we want to add, or rather to have our voices added in the climate, in the African climate narrative, because you find most of the times our stories are being told by other people.
Yes.
Now it is our time as Africans to tell our climate experiences and the effects that it's having on our life.
Yeah.
And the beauty about it is that it has everyone from across Africa. So you find people from Benin joining, people from Nigeria, people from Egypt, people from Somalia, just coming in. So it's another event that will help us to synergize together as Africans. It will help us to network together as Africans. And we are coming from diverse fields. You find a filmmaker there, you find someone with a PhD in environment, you find a farmer from Mashinani, having and sharing the experiences there. So it has broadened the conversation, and it will be very rich because we will all speaking from our point of view and the experiences we are facing at the levels that we are in.
Yes. Thank you so much. Francis, while we were on break, you were just telling me how you will have farmers speak for themselves. And as a moderator, I want just you to give us an inner eye, you know, on what will be happening.
So like Ken says, we are bringing everybody into this climate conversation. People with PhDs in environment, people with PhDs in law, accountants like myself, you know, and even farmers and farmer representatives, including policy makers. And the whole, you know, we have divided this event into segments where, you know, we have panels of people coming from different quarters. So we want, you know, if it's someone who is in, you know, like a policy maker in the space of environment, to hear firsthand from a farmer. So that even as policies are being made, of course, we know policies are made after research, but the experience of talking, you know, one-on-one with someone from the front line, you know, of course, you know, helps, you know, the rest of the, you know, components understand and speak better to the, to this debate. So, we want to bring farmers, we want to bring pastoralists, we want to bring, you know, people from the basic unit of the society, is for them to also appreciate what is their role and understand the, you know, the reason why the climate debate is part and parcel of their lives. So that is why we want to bring these people in, you know, in these panels, regardless of where a person sits in society, regardless of which office a person holds, or regardless of what they feel is their is the importance of their contribution to the climate change debate. Because we feel that climate change, if you look at the 17 odd SDGs, each one of them has a dimension about you know, climate. If you talk about poverty, if you talk about you know, education, if you talk about well-being, if you talk about you know, the blue economy, everything has a dimension to do with climate and climate change. And that is why we are bringing all these people together. And from a strategic point of view, we want a unity of, you know, a confluence of efforts from different players to take this conversation forward. And, you know, if you look at the way, you know, in the past things have been done, you'll find that there are efforts. We're not saying that there are no efforts that have been happening. There have been, you know, efforts, but perhaps these components have not been speaking to each other. And this is the bridge that the Climate Story Lab Africa is trying to bridge.
We have needed this bridge for a very long time, because I believe policymakers, we have had conferences left, right and center speaking about climate, but we have not seen an action plan. We have not seen those components come together. As we conclude, I want to ask Ken, what is the reality of climate in Kenya? If there is nothing that happens, if we as individuals don't play our role, what is the reality of climate in Kenya? And are we ready to handle the you know, the harshness that comes with not caring about the climate? Thank you.
And before even I go to that, another aspect and a very interesting aspect of the whole event is that when the conversations are happening, we have creatives. These are illustrators, cartoonists, drawing actually or interpreting whatever is being said around the tables into now, you know, these visual asset that people can now relate into. So we are trying to make it as diverse as possible, as more interactive. We'll have a spoken word person trying to, you know, put into perspective whatever is being discussed there, so that it can be relatable to people watching from different spheres. And yes, we are in a climate emergency. Definitely we must do something right now, or else then especially the Gen Z and the millennials will be adversely affected. Actually, the most people who bear the brunt is us, the young people, because all these ripple effect that we're having on climate change right now will then be more in advance during our time when we're growing into more years older. But if we take actions now, definitely, and that's why we are saying it's our time now to engage, to be part of the conversation, to take actions that will really help us to mitigate the effects of climate change. Because climate change is something gradual, it's something that will be there for so long. But what we can do as a people and as young people is just to try and see then our actions are not contributing into the climate change, or rather the advanced climate change that we are having. For example, we need to check into the issue of littering. Young people are the ones who buy chocolate. Young people are the ones who are candies, sweets and everything. And they're the very first people who throw out those bottles and those papers which are not degradable. We hear a plastic paper can take hundreds of years to degrade. So kinunua sweetie and you buy candies, you buy sodas, and you go throw in plastics. I always ask myself then, we need to start there and ask yourself then, whom do you expect then to bear the brunt of that in action that you're doing there? Another very interesting, if you look even into how we dispose things even in our homes, for example, how do you at the kitchen level, when you use those groceries, how do you even dispose them? I was shocked to hear from one of the climate activists and the climate people we have. For example, if you have an onion and you cut it just 1 centimeter, you can replant it and it will regrow again in your kitchen garden. And najua we live in flats in Nairobi, but still we can have a small mkebe agunia and plant and plant your onions there. You just use a little bit of it and the other one you plant. That means then you've solved so many issues. You've solved the climate issue, you've solved also the economic issue, because you don't have to chip into your pocket to buy again an onion. So so we need to have this small conversation of how we can take actions as young people, of how we can take care of our environment. If you go to Vasha for a weekend, how can you even go maybe plant a tree?
And leave it in memory of Vasha 2021.
And make this conversation interesting that young people can fuse in, can feel part of it. We need to make the climate change conversation so interesting that we can have it on a daily basis. If that's quite a show like now we are having, how can we then be infusing in our daily lives about climate change and discuss on solutions? Because we cannot be sitting down and wait for people to go to COP25 and find a solution. And you know, most of them, they'll be seated in a boardroom just trying to find how can we define climate change. And it will take years of policy making, years of what? As those leaders continue pushing for policy change at that level, then at our level, upper ground, then what are we doing that is contributing to mitigating climate change?
Thank you so much, Ken. Final words, Francis. I talk to young people out there because I think that is the geography we are trying to reach, young and the old, but mostly the young because of the art aspect of it. Just final words as we close up.
Maybe to the young people, I want to tell you that it's a fallacy that you are the leaders of tomorrow. You are the leaders of today. And please take charge. Climate change, speaks to our life. And I would want you to, it's a call to action to the young people. Speak to your elected leaders, speak to policymakers, be heard, participate in whatever way that you can. In your creative spaces, write a song, write a poem, let it be known, talk about climate change, and talk about the change you want to see. Make the change you want to see. As policymakers sit in boardrooms at your own space. Also do what you need to do as far as climate change is concerned, and ignite the change you want to change. That's my call to action for young people.
Yes, I think you guys are going to love Art and Culture Monday because we do a lot of that. I have had literally an artist whose art is about environment, and he does spoken word, and not actually one, I think two. Like they have channeled their genre of art to talk about the environment, to talk about littering, to hold events, to go and clean up places. And I think these are the kind of actions that we need taken. Ken, final words.
This is an interesting conversation you can't miss to contribute into. We are asking for people doing in the space that you are, do something conscious that will help the environment. And definitely if you go to our website, which is climatestorylab.africa, you definitely see the diverse of people coming on board. And it's a chance for young people in Kenya. It's happening here in your home country, just right here. And so we want you to engage and be part of the conversation. Add your voice to the narrative, to the African climate narrative, because there's no other time you can do it. It's now. As Francis said, we are the leaders of today, and whatever actions we take today then will determine the future of this nation, the future of the globe at well, because climate change happening in Africa, it's happening elsewhere. So whatever you contribute here, it's affecting someone else elsewhere.
Yes.
So be part of this conversation. We promise you it's going to be a 2-day of a full fun, engagement, deeper conversation, and definitely contributing to the larger global conversation about climate change.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been enlightening. Like, I think I have had so much wisdom on how, and as an individual, I can contribute to climate change. Guys, the date is the 8th and the 9th of July. YouTube live, you have all that for free. Yani, from the comfort of your home. No one is asking you for transport. No one is asking you for a ticket. You just need bundles, Wi-Fi mahali. Sit down, engage in this conversation, comment. You know, let those people feel the grassroots feeling of however climate is affecting you as an individual. Thank you so much. I think this was quite an interesting conversation. Let us take a very short breather. When we come back, we have much more on Art and Culture Monday. Don't dare go anywhere.
When the rains fails, every farmer feels like running away.